Welcome to School Safety Talks. I'm your host, Zeev Fragachan, and today we have a very important guest. And I got to read this because it's long. So, Michael Udine. I pronounce that right?
Michael Udine.
Udine.
Yes.
All right. Sorry. I'm a Spanish speaker, Hebrew speaker, and English is like my third language. I butchers everybody's name.
Is that my bio?
Yeah.
You don't want to waste time on that. I'll tell everyone. I'm a county commissioner for Broward County. I was the former mayor of Parkland. So I was a mayor of Parkland from 06 until 16, and then I went on the county commission, which covers Northwest Broward County.
Phenomenal.
I have 3 children. All of them went to the Parkland Public Schools. Schools are kind of in my DNA. My wife was the PTO president at most of the schools when my kids were there. And she was a PTO president at Stoneman Douglas when they unfortunately had the tragic shooting. So I've been involved with things in my office, I've been in Northwest Broward my whole adult life. I grew up in Tamarack. I'm from the first graduating class of J.P. Taravella High School right down the street. So I'm a local guy, and I'm happy to be here and talk with you.
I really appreciate you coming. We have a common friend, which is Alan Altman, great friend, parent of a survivor in Parkland. And we all talk about the same thing. I want to share something with our viewers today, and I want you to keep these numbers in mind. Statistically, every a school shooting lasts about between 5 to 8 minutes, 8 minutes at tops. The response from the police is about 8 to 10 minutes. So statistically, the police will arrive when everything is done and the shooter killed himself. The last numbers from the FBI in 2023, 70% of the time the police arrived too late. Keep those numbers in your mind when we're talking about this, because obviously there is a lot that we learn from Parkland. And one of the things we learn from Parkland is that response. In here, we protect life. That is the principal thing that we put in here. As a parent, and I told this to my employees, I will die for my kids and I will kill for my kids. And if you don't have that in your DNA, you're not for us. You shouldn't be in a school protecting schools because those are somebody else's kids. But when they are in the school, they're your kids. And I want to make sure that my kids are protected like that. Welcome to the show. Let me ask you the first question, which is very important. Parkland, the shooting, the safety, what has changed? What Broward has done to change what happened in Parkland?
So from a state perspective, we've done a lot, and it was people coming together to do what was best for children. I mean, if your children don't come home from school when you send them to school, everything else we're doing doesn't matter. I mean, that's the most important thing. And I think from a state level, they enacted certain laws, different things with, security upgrades, requiring to have a security officer in every school. Coming up with some red flag laws for guns and coming up with some things where the police can then go out and, look at threat assessments. Our sheriff then came in and built, the Viper Center and started with the county commission, really doing a lot as far as going out for threat protection orders to be able to take firearms and go after certain people that are mentally ill and that have issues and that shouldn't have guns. While respecting everyone's Second Amendment right. We're a Second Amendment state, and we respect that, but we want to make sure that it's being done in a safe manner. From a county's perspective, one of the things that went where you talked about response time, the radio system that we were operating on was 20 years old, and it throttled at the time, which caused a delay in radio traffic. People knew what was happening, but there was issues with the radios. We've since in Broward County have done one of the biggest public safety upgrades by putting in a new E911 system, a new radio system, which required, the radio towers, emergency towers throughout the county. I think about 16 of them strategically placed throughout the county. It was a very expensive project, but well worth it. And it was one of those things where it took political will to get it done. NIMBYism. No one wanted anything built in their backyard.
Absolutely.
As far as towers, but we're all on our cell phones and we're all doing this and we all need the radios and public safety needed it. So we got that done.
And I can attest to that. You are one of the few counties that actually issue police radios to the SSOs, to our people. Helped tremendously.
Right.
Because we have in the fingertip. The share of information that we have among us is second to none.
Right.
And that is very, very important.
I think we saw during the aftermath of Parkland what had happened is there were silos and people were in different silos and they weren't all talking to each other. Our radio system was over capacity and it was crowded at the time, and it would still be. We have a lot of people on it, even though we've upgraded the system. We've moved no one really realized that if you're holding a radio, a police radio, or like a walkie-talkie, and you push the send button, you're now even if you don't say anything, even if you just hold the button for a second, you now put traffic on that radio. And when everyone's starting to do that,
Correct.
It adds into the signal. So if you're a school bus driver and you have that radio on your school bus, it may not be necessary for public safety. You probably shouldn't even be on the same system so that you can't throttle it. So we saw that with the airport when we had the shooting at the airport, and it's something that we've made a conscious effort in Broward County to correct. I know the city of Coral Springs and the city of Parkland have been working diligently for years. I mean, they want to be upgrading when it comes to safety, and they want to do everything possible. Our school board member, Lori Alhadeff, who lost a child, excellent when it comes to school safety. Most of the parents from Parkland, from the tragedy, have really spent time in Washington when I was visiting Congress people. They were there walking the halls, talking to people.
Admire them in their resilience and how they transformed this tremendous tragedy into something else. You know what? We will never know how many lives these families saved since they put the pressure that they put and they build what they build.
Yep.
And kudos for them. And I'm a big advocate for what they do.
I don't know how I personally would deal with the grief that they dealt with. I have a tremendous amount of respect because I can't figure out how they do it, but they do it, and they've really been able to make the world a safer place by their actions. And there's a lot to be said for that. A lot of respect for that.
A lot. I published a book recently about school safety, how to prevent a school's tragedy. And one of the things that we learned is the youth mental health component that we are making mandatory right now for the teachers and staff and for the guards. Because of that, recently, because my dream, if you ask me what is my wish list, I want to see a federal mandate. Because there were 348 school shootings in 2023, 318 in 2024. You know how many school shootings we have in Florida? 0. Why do you think is that? Because we're doing something that they don't. Michael Udine, will you support a federal mandate?
I would have to look at everything, but I do agree that anything that comes with more mental health counseling for our youth, and for our adults for that reason. There's just a lot of people out there that have issues that we need to look at. Something that provides for better screening. I mean, a lot of times after, when you're the expert on this, it's almost as if I've had some inkling that this could have been a person that could have done that had they been flagged somewhere in the system. Certainly that was the case with the Parkland shooter. This was a person that was in the system many times, was just never properly flagged, and no one was talking to anybody. The silos were there, and we got to break those down to make that better. And if we need help via legislation, via dollars for mental health, via dollars for threat assessment, via dollars for school safety, look, I think that's a good use of dollars if it's not being wasted and it's being used the right way to keep our children safe. Because like I said, you can spend as much money as you want trying to educate a child. If they're not coming home from school that day, what does it matter? You need to make sure that they are safe when they're in school.
A school is there to educate. You form an individual home. If that child do not have a home to come, the support of a family structure, even without a single parent is a family, without that support, and they only get that support from social media, you start having a lot of other issues.
Agree 100%. And it's more so than just schools and school safety. I mean, I think that it's becoming harder and harder for our society to deal with a reality that we've dealt with in the past growing up. There's just so much coming in from social media. There's so much that's, I call Facebook fake book. There's so much stuff that we're seeing where, you're seeing the algorithms of what people are looking at based on what people want to push into to that.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think that there's a lot to be said for that. It is a problem when people aren't getting, the appropriate level of care, at home. From a health and nutrition point of view, in Broward County, when we call a hurricane day and close school for a while and schools aren't open if there's something going on, there's some people that just don't eat that day because they're only getting their meals, their free breakfast and their lunch at school. And now you couple that with the high costs of everything in South Florida and around the nation.
You remember when we were start giving participation trophies and awards? We give a disservice to these kids because now they do not develop that part.
Right.
They become adults and they become so fragile. And we have a generation of fragile people.
You have to learn how to lose. You have to learn how to win. It's part of winning. If everything was perfect, you wouldn't know what it was, because you have to have some level of adversity in your life that you can overcome. And if we take that away from the next generation, we're doing a huge disservice. And I think that we have done that to a certain extent in a lot of levels. You need to make sure that you are giving children a chance to fail on their own, and then bounce back, because that's what the world is all about. No one's perfect. There's no perfection out there, and people have to learn humility. Just the difference sometimes between that summer before kindergarten, where in more affluent families, they're doing enrichment, they're reading, they're traveling, they're together, they're doing their thing. And then you take not as affluent families, they take that summer slide where they're not doing anything. And you start to see a delta of one group performing better than another group. And after a while, that delta gets bigger and bigger, and we have to, look out for that. Now, throw in what happened with COVID nationwide, with schools being shut down, regardless of what your politics are on that.
Absolutely.
Forgetting about that, there was the fact that schools were shut down for a while. We lost track of a lot of students, and I think we're going to see the results of that years ahead.
Correct.
Of what happened based on that Delta change.
When these kids get to high school,
they're not going to be as prepared, and that leads to all kinds of other things. I mean, if you lose those students because they feel like they're so far behind that they're just off on another path.
One of the things that I wanna put there, and I see, because I visit a lot of schools, and I see the difference between an SRO, between a off-duty cop as SSO or a guardian. I really think it should be mandatory just to cover the school, not to put somebody that is just law enforcement, because I think the lack of the preparation necessary is a different world. The qualifications to be SSO or SRO are way stringent than be a police officer in the street. Why are we doing this?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think that what we need to do and what we need to make sure is that whatever the person is that we're putting into the school, be it a law enforcement officer, a school resource officer, a safety officer, or a security guard, is properly trained for dealing with that environment. And that's all the way around. That, when I was in high school, the school resource officer became part of the fabric of that high school. That school resource officer knew where the parties were on the weekends, and they were more involved in the day-to-day. That there should be a relationship between the students and that officer. It should be somebody that's properly trained, that knows how to handle all that stuff.
What's the political future for Mike?
I'm happy where I am. I'm on the county commission. I'll serve till November of 2028, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But I really enjoy serving the people of Northwest Broward. It's been in my DNA since 2003. I've seen this whole area kind of grow up, so to speak, been involved in a lot of the good in the area. Unfortunately, have been part and have witnessed a lot of the bad. It's been my honor to be there for people. I mean, when the school shooting happened at Stoneman Douglas, I went to visit local first-year colleges with students from Parkland and from Stoneman Douglas. I went to Florida State, I went to Tallahassee, I went to Gainesville, and I just was there as a resource. And, I did some talks for some of the people that had graduated, the last year from Douglas and maybe had a brother or a sister that was still there, just to kind of be a friendly face that they knew that we can talk and be there for them. So I appreciate what you do. I appreciate,
I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, so keep up the good work, and
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.